All right. Welcome, everyone, to Nerd of the Rings. My guest today has been Indiana Jones, James Bond, Superman, and much more. He joins me today to talk about his most recent job of stunt coordinator and second unit director on The Rings of Power. Vic Armstrong, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Matt. My pleasure.
Now, we know just today, Amazon is releasing on Prime Video some bonus features, some behind the scenes stuff from the show, and we get to see you in those, Vic. But first, before we dive into the show, I always like to ask people first, right off the bat, how were you first introduced to Tolkien?
As a kid, I knew of him. I used to actually play with my niece, my niece up in north of Birmingham, and that's where Tolkien, I believe, when he was holidaying up there, he got the idea for the hobbits and the caves and everything else. It was north of Stourbridge, a wonderful area. And I used to play up there. So it's quite funny when I started delving into Tolkien and everything else. That's the first I'd sort of obviously knew of him. And then I didn't have much to do with him. I left school very early, started in the film business very young. And I then really became aware of him when I was offered the original Lord of the Rings. I was in America doing, I think, Charlie's Angels, the first movie, Charlie's Angels. And I was offered it. And I couldn't get off the movie. I was going straight on to another one. So, but I read the script and was looking into it in those days. So that's my sort of nefarious type of connection with Tolkien prior to working on this series.
So it's kind of nice. You missed out on the last go round in Middle Earth, but you got to jump on this one.
Absolutely. Patience pays off.
Now I said before we started filming, I kind of geeked out a little bit when I was looking at your career, and I'm a huge fan of Indiana Jones as well as Lord of the Rings. So seeing you as stunt double for Harrison Ford was really cool. So I'm curious, what's your journey been like from stuntman to where now you are a coordinator and director?
It's been one long learning curve, quite honestly, and all the way along you pick up bits and pieces that you're going to use in later life. I started off as a horse rider and a stuntman, and then very early on I started coordinating the movies, which means stunt coordinating, which means you start putting the stunts together, suggesting them, employing stuntmen to do them. And then the next step was second unit director. And I moved along very quickly in those early days because I love the creativity of it. And when I was a stuntman, I thought, wow, that guy, the stunt coordinator, that's a better job because he's actually telling me what to do. And then when I became a stunt coordinator, I thought, well, actually, the second unit director's got a better job because he's telling the stunt coordinator what he wants to see. And so it goes down the line. So it's been a learning curve all the way, though. Every show you do, every job is, you learn something more, something different.
Very cool. And I did notice, I just learned this morning actually, that your whole family really is stunt people.
Absolutely. When I was doing Spider-Man, I think there were 9 Armstrongs on it. I've got 4 children that do it. My brother does it. His son does it. My other nephew is now directing, as well as being a stuntman. And everybody in the family really is connected. My wife is the daughter of a very famous English stuntman that I worked for in the very early days. So, yeah, our dinner tables are sort of either talking about horses or talking about falling off horses.
Now, I'm curious, compared to all the multitude of films and fantasy and created worlds that you've worked in, are there unique challenges when it comes to doing stunt work in Middle Earth versus some of these other franchises?
Every film has its sort of idiosyncrasies. You have to keep within the boundaries of the storyline and the characterization of all the people and the genre you're in. Superman is a different approach to what Indiana Jones is. Indiana Jones is different from Bond, which again is different from Charlie's Angels. So you have to get your head into the script, into the director's brain, the producer's mindset, and actually develop everything around the core of the script, which is our Bible when we're working. So you actually learn on the job as well. What you don't know, then you swat up on and you talk to people and get input from from writers. So it's quite a learning curve, actually.
Now, I'm curious, what was the most challenging stunt sequence that you experienced on that you had to plan and execute for season 1?
Yeah, all stunt sequences are difficult because you want to make them as dramatic as you can, as exciting as you can, in the right vein for the movie, not just because you're doing a stunt for stunt's sake.
Mm-hmm.
For me, on this one, I think really probably was the shipwreck with Galadriel and Halbrand when they're in that storm. Because not wanting to spoil anything, when you shoot it, we're not actually out in the ocean, we're in a controlled environment, but you have to control that environment to make it violent. And you know, creating those 6 or 8 foot waves in a big tank is very difficult, and keeping everything in frame, and the cameras are getting wet, and you know, you have different crane cameras and water cameras, have an underwater operator, so he's shooting at sea, at water level and things. The actors get frozen, and that was nearly all done with the real actors, which is, to me, the ideal situation to do stunts. You literally use a stuntman when you can't risk an actor, but if you can use the actors in those stunts, then it's much more realistic, much more believable. You can get better shots, you can get in closer. So that was very difficult, and that, of course, then led into the underwater sequence where Galadriel goes off the raft and goes underwater, and Halbrand dives down to save her. And again, you know, going 30, 40 feet down in water is difficult. So we didn't have a tank, a water tank that deep. We use a special tank for the underwater shots so you can control the clarity of the water. So we actually, instead of shooting her vertically, we shot her horizontally, and you put the camera on its side and you shoot everything like that. So when you project it vertically correctly, it looks as though she's going down. But the difficulty with that was for the actress, for Miv, who plays Galadriel. She has to be laying on her back, pretending to be unconscious, and being dragged along on a cable underwater. You know, when water goes up your nose and everything, it's horrendous. So that was all very, very tricky. And, you know, without trying to wear your actors out or drown them, it's hard work.
Yeah.
That was a challenge.
Now, I'm curious, so dragging them sideways, I guess you also have to watch out for stuff like bubbles, you know, floating sideways. Yeah.
That was a good point you bring up there. She had to hold her breath all the time, and we took her down several minutes before we do the shot, and we've got divers down at each end of the cable, which is 30, 40 feet apart, and they have a buddy breather, which is another rebreather that she puts in her mouth when she's underwater, and she's breathing and breathing, and then you get all the costume move around so no bubbles come out and rise up. And the light has to also look as though it's coming from above, so the light is coming horizontally. It's everything. You have to really change your mind around to thinking it. But it worked really successfully, and the fact we were moving her, her clothes flowed in the right direction, etc. But there's all those little funny things that you don't think of until you start doing it, and it's quite a you know, hardship to it all.
I bet. Now, you were also the second unit director. So what portions or what scene from season 1 was your favorite that you directed?
Sorry, that I lost you there. It went blank.
Oh, okay. What scene that you directed as second unit director was your favorite?
A lot of my work is so interwoven with the main unit, but what I did as an individual one, where there was at the end of on episode 6, after the raid in the village, where Galadriel chases Adar on her horse and gallops away, and then they go through the woodlands and everything else. She catches up with him, and they meet Halbrand coming the other way, and he leans down and trips the horse over, and they crash. And funny enough, talking about my earlier films, the moments in that I stole from other pictures, like Raiders of the Lost Ark. In fact, when Halbrand goes down with his spear at ground level and still on his horse and trips the other horse, that was what I did doubling Harrison Ford on The Last Crusade, when Harrison gallops along, picks up the rock off the ground that he's eventually going to stick in the barrel of the tank.
Right, yeah.
But that was the horse movement I wanted. So that was the reference I was showing to the stunt people that were doing that particular gag, you know? All those sort of things. There's lots of things get interwoven and brought from an earlier movie of some sort and just revamped. But that was a tough one to do. I'm very proud of that, and quite a bit of the standalone fight within the village.
Yeah.
Another one which I really enjoyed was the fight with Kyrene in the kitchen with
Oh
Naz
yeah.
when the orc comes out of the floor. That was really spooky, really scary. And as in Jaws, it was more scary when you can't see the creature, so you see his hand, his claws coming out and everything else. And Naz wasn't renowned as an action actress. She's a wonderful actress, but she'd never done much action before. So we had a lot of training, a lot of working with her to get her fight moves and everything else. And in the end, she was fantastic. In the end, when she gets the shovel and chops the orc's head off, she just went at it like a Babe Ruth with a baseball bat. It was fantastic. She was wonderful. So it was fun to see her develop into an action actress from being this real classical actress.
Now, I'm curious, how does for those who don't know, how does a second unit director, what's the working relationship like between second unit director, showrunners? What's your typical workflow and typical day look like?
It's my job as a second unit director and a stunt coordinator. You actually deal with every single department in the movie, from construction to the set designer, to the props, to the special effects, to the stunt people, and of course to the actors, because all of those departments have to deliver me what I want to do when I'm doing my action sequences. So it's quite a sort of narrow line you have to walk, because the showrunners, they have their perception of what they want for the characterization of the film. Then you have the director, who you're actually helping bring up his baby. That's his baby, this whole episode. So you have to deliver what that director wants as if he was there doing it instead of you. Half the time they can't do it because they're not there. There's time constraints. They're doing other things. So they have to trust me to give me the actors, because half my job is, as I say, on the water sequence, working with the actors or deciding when to take the actor out and put the stunt person in, getting the right shots, getting the right scope and genre that they dream of. So it's quite tricky, and some directors are more difficult than others. Some don't want a second unit director. I remember I did Gangs of New York, and Marty Scorsese did not want a second unit director because he's such a perfectionist. But after a few weeks, he began to trust me, and I did a huge amount of stuff on that. But you have to gain their trust first, and that's the hardest part. And then you have to rely on your instincts to deliver everything in the same style as their cameraman will, for instance. You can't have a change of lighting sort of angles and quality. So there's all these things you have to take into account. It's quite a political minefield to tiptoe through to get everything correct, and at the same time delivering something that's dynamic and worthwhile. You spending all that money. My unit will cost hundreds of thousands a week to run, so you have to deliver the goods at the end of the day. So it's quite a minefield to tiptoe through.
Yeah. Now, you touched on something there that I thought was interesting. You said, when you decide when to take the actor out and put the stunt person in, what's that process like? How does that usually play out?
That process is normally decided, or you have a good idea well in advance, because everything we do, we rehearse, because when we're shooting, that's where the big money gets spent. And prior to every sequence I do, there's a whole team of people rehearsing, and if there's people being ripped off backwards in the air, there's the troll, the snow troll in the beginning of the episode there that they fight in the cave. That was one big continuous shot going round and round. So that had to be really specifically worked out. But at the end, we had to put Galadriel into that shot. So we were decided what that was, because the earlier shots, as people being thrown around, the swords flying all directions, you can't risk her getting hit. So you angle your shots so you're not really going to see her face to any great distinction until the moment you want, when she runs in, picks up the sword and leaps up and over the snow troll and sticks in the back of his head, which she rehearsed the heck out of. And she's a very athletic woman, the same as a lot of the actors are. Harrison Ford, Tom Cruise, they're very, very athletic people, but you can't risk the money. If they get hurt, then we're all out of a job. So those sort of decisions are thought well in advance, knowing that, an hour before we need it, we say, okay, Miv, you're going to be doing your piece in an hour's time. Start warming up. start doing some rehearsal with the stunt people, get your harness on, because harness have to be fitted, then the costume has to go over the top of that. All those sort of things have to be taken into account when you're shooting. So it's quite well planned. It's very rarely you go, oh, this is not working, stick the double in there. You know, it's all thought out beforehand.
Very interesting. Yeah, I love hearing about the behind the scenes stuff. Stunt work is one of those incredible movie magic things. I'm curious, what so the times that you've been a stuntman personally, what is there one that sticks out in your mind as the one you're most proud of, or the one that you pulled off that was the most dangerous, or anything like that?
They're all terribly dangerous until you do them, and then it seems anticlimactic. You know, the adrenaline goes away, and you feel tired, and you think about the next job. But one I'm always proud of, because it's in a film that is one of the iconic films you like, is the jump from the horse, galloping horse, onto the tank on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. You know, I'm a horseman, and you know, there's a lot of fantastic stunts been done over the years, but that was tricky in as much as we had to gallop the horse close to the edge of a bluff, and the tank below me. Had to have the horse running the straight line. As when I drop the reins and stand on the saddle, he mustn't slow down or swerve away. I can't get him too close to the edge in case he slips down between the cliff and the tank. I had to travel about 18 feet laterally to land on the tank. All little things like that. So I'm very proud of that, and I guess because it's such an iconic film anyway. But, you know, I've done 100-foot falls on The Final Conflict, which really gets your heart going when you stand at the top and you look at this little postage stamp you're going to land on, you hope. Things like that. And I did a fan descender, which is a piece of equipment that drops you at a given rate of speed. But I invented this particular machine, and they used it in Mexico. We jumped 340 feet off a building with a helicopter following me down, and I land on the edge, release my quick release, and jump onto a truck and drive away. There's lots of things like that, but it all becomes part of the jigsaw puzzle of your history, really. As I say, once you've done it, it's
you said you invented that machine that does that?
Inventing is probably is the wrong phrase. I adapted it. It's from a piece of equipment that parachutists practice landing on.
Oh, okay.
Ground, so they don't have to go up in the plane to jump and land. They can go 30 feet in the air, hook onto this machine, and it drops you onto the ground at the same speed as a parachute. Well, I took that as my basis and altered it and did lots of things to it. So we had variable speed ones that you could land, you could fall at different speeds, and it would slow down and land at a different speed. I used it on Indiana Jones, jumping out the Obi nightclub. Through the canopies. My wife and I did that. Actually, Wendy, she was doubling the girls in the show. So we had that. So we fell at a huge rate of knots. And as you hit the last canopy, it slows down over about 6 or 7 feet, and then release and pop over the edge onto the car and drive away. So yeah, I adapted that piece of equipment. Let's say I did get an Academy Award for it because it was recognized as a tremendous piece of equipment. There's a Science and Technology Academy Award, so I'm very proud of that.
Absolutely, yeah, as well you should be. That's incredible. Now I'm curious, circling back to the show, are there any scenes or any bits that you remember shooting that was left out that you hope people might get to see someday?
No, I don't think so. I was thinking about that. I think everything that we wanted to be in there, because again, preparation is the secret of all these movies, and there's nothing worse than working weeks and weeks preparing something and days shooting it, and it doesn't actually make it to the final cut. It might be abbreviated, but no, everything that I sort of did there was in the movie. Some were reduced a little bit, but I'm very happy with that. It means we're working efficiently and we're not wasting money, and all your energies are actually going up on screen, which is very satisfying.
Yeah, well, they knew better than to cut you out, Vic, is what it is. So I had on a live stream, oh gosh, probably a month or so ago, some of the orc actors. I had Jed Brophy, Phil Grieve, Luke Hawker, and Robert Strange, and so we talked a little bit about, kind of their work, and they were also raving about Ismael Cruz Cordova's work ethic. And it seems like, from everybody that I've talked to, it seems like he really brought it when it came to filming and the stunts were no exception.
Yeah, Ismail was terrific. I must say, all the actors were fabulous. They all rehearsed. Nobody, pushed back on any of the stuff. We had them, horse riding, swimming, fighting, gymnastics, stretching. But Ismail really took his character Arandir to heart. And I directed a big sequence with him where he dives into a pit in the bottom of the house where he and Karin see there's a hole there, and he goes to search through it. So I did a lot of work with him crawling through these tunnels, and at one stage, his nose is an inch from the surface, from the roof of the thing. We always try and exaggerate or bring in phobias of everybody. Everybody has a fear of heights. Nearly everybody has a fear of claustrophobia, right, where you feel that you panic and you can't move. And he did all that wonderfully. And his fighting style was very, very good, because we had to come up with something for him. We don't just want the regular sword fencing. So he had this very athletic movement and things like that. And one other sequence we did in the attack on the village, where he's grabbed around the neck by a chain on the top of the house, where he's been organizing and coordinating the raid, or the resistance to the raid. Mm-hmm. And he gets pulled off the roof of the house and bounces down onto the ground, meets a great big orc that punches the bejesus out of him. That was our homage to Raiders of the Lost Ark, with a fight I did with Big Pat Roach and Harrison Ford around the revolving aeroplane.
Yeah.
So it was our little homage to that in a certain way. But no, Ismail, was in training every day and flexing, and even on the nights we were shooting, because that was night work, he would train during the day with the day stuntmen.
Oh, wow.
And I was very, very proud and excited of how much energy and realism he put into it. I think we threw him around like a rag doll, and he loved it. It was very satisfying.
So is there any part of you that kind of wants to jump in there and do some stunts yourself?
No. I got too many bits of metal and bits and pieces in there over the years, and I retired as a physical stuntman, actually participating way back. In fact, after the Indiana Jones first three, I thought we were only making a trilogy. I didn't realize they'd go on and do more.
Yeah.
But it is a young man's job, and I pay for it now. The good thing about the injuries I've had, I can blame my bad golf swing on them and say, yeah, it's the injury.
There you go.
I can't play.
So we're not going to see you again as Indiana Jones in the upcoming fifth one, I guess.
No, unfortunately. That's definitely a young man's job.
Well, Vic, thank you so much for taking the time out today and to chat with us about the amazing work that you do, and chat a bit about your career and everything. Really appreciate you taking out the time.
No, it's my pleasure. And we're racking our brains to come up with real good original stuff for the next season as well. It's going to be great. So thank you for the call anyway.
Fantastic. Well, guys, you can see some more of Vic. Vic's on the behind the scenes material that just came out. So just navigate to Prime Video like you would to watch the show, and use their X-ray feature, and you can catch those bits on Prime Video there, and see some more of Vic and his work in action. Thanks again, Vic, and have a great day, everyone. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time
on Nerd of the Rings.
Thanks.
Bye.